How about contenders? Not this year. We know there are only 2 contenders left for the national championship. But contenders in the future, 2022 and beyond. What do we think about these contenders? Well, I was asking the other day. It was very brief. Then I think the tweet got deleted, so you can't even see the evidence. But we were talking about contenders and which teams you believe in the future. And we got 8 of them. I'm going to go through the list really quick. And I just want you to think in your mind, like, what are the odds, scale of 1 to 10, that these teams play for a national championship? Let's not even say win one. Let's just say play for one over the next 3 years. Scale of 1 to 10, what do you think? Texas A&M is the obvious first choice. A&M is strengthening their grip on the number 1 class in the country right now. I think the odds are fairly good. I think the odds are 7 or 8. Over the next 3 years, they play for a national championship. Now, we all know who they have to go through to do it, but maybe they don't. Maybe the SEC West gets so strong that them and Alabama are able to make the playoff in any given year. I think A&M is going to get there. Remember, we had Jimbo on National Signing Day. He did not hold back. He did not mince words. Said Connor Wigman, the quarterback, they scouted him as the best in the country. They did not go after Quinn Ewers in large part because of that. They've got a ton of great perimeter skill. Line of scrimmage, I was going to say O-line, but line of scrimmage either way will not be an issue for them for the foreseeable future. They'll have the quality top-line starters. They'll have the quality depth, but they're just going to have more team speed. They're going to be able to do more. I asked them on the signing day show, is there stuff that you've wanted to do offensively that you haven't been able to do because of limited personnel? He said, yeah, pretty much, yeah. So I'm going to go a 7.5. Let's go a 7.5 for Texas A&M. Chances on a scale of 1 to 10 that they make a title game within the next 3 years. USC was the next school that I got asked about. I'm only at like a 4 here. You know what? I'm going to go a 3. Let's go lower. A 3. It's not that I don't think Lincoln Riley will have success in LA. I certainly do. Let's just pump the brakes a second and remember Lincoln Riley had insane success at Oklahoma. They didn't play for a title at Oklahoma. So he's going to have to do more over the next 3 years at USC than he did at Oklahoma. And, let's just call it like it is. He's in a conference that does him no favors. So there's a lot to overcome here. Also, their roster, you may think to yourself, is just loaded and the talent's there and someone's just got to put the keys in the ignition and crank it up. That's not the case at USC. USC's roster is not what you think it would be. It will be. They'll get the talent there, but it's not an overnight thing. So certainly I don't expect that from them next year. The year after that would still be pushing it. I'll tell you what I do love is I do love the quarterback situation. I love Jackson Dart being there. And look, if it's not Jackson Dart, that means someone like Caleb Williams has decided to go out there, and so it's even better. So the quarterback situation notwithstanding, still think the rest of that roster needs some work. I'm going to go a 3 on a scale of 1 to 10. Florida is one of the biggest wild cards on this entire sheet. It could be that they just hit a grand slam and no one knows it with Billy Napier. As I said on the last show we did the other night, the talk of the SEC behind the scenes has been Billy Napier and the staff he's putting together. There are a lot of doubters who would just tell you openly, I don't doubt him anymore, because they didn't doubt his on-field acumen. They didn't doubt his game day abilities. They don't doubt him recruiting, and he is a very, very underrated evaluator too. Like a lot of people talk about this in the scouting world. It's just not, plastered all over every network's game day show. Billy Napier checks a lot of those boxes. What people didn't know is he going to be able to attract a staff? Answer, yes, he attracted a staff. He is in the process of attracting a staff. And I'll tell you what else. That's just to kick things off. Year over year now, and this always happens, when a new coach gets in town, you don't ever hire a staff and then they just all stay together the first 5 years. That's rarely the way it works. So what Billy Napier's done, he's already got a good staff in place, but this time next year, my guess is he'll have even more interest from guys around the country. They're also building a really good army of off-field support staffers, some of whom, in fact, most of whom you don't know the names of. But now they got to put the roster together. Now they got to implement the culture, and I think there is some reverse that has to be done before they put it back in drive down there. That's okay. That's fine. They're making a move for a reason. I'm going to say a 4 on a scale of 1 to 10, that they're playing for a title within the next 3 years. 3.5 or a 4. I believe in Billy Napier. Please don't mistake me. They play in a very tough conference, so it makes it a little more difficult. There's a different kind of path for them to get to a title game. Miami is a 3 for me, but Miami is also a big wild card. These two Florida teams, huge wild cards. Because here's what could happen. What could happen is Mario Cristobal could just go completely off the rails in a good way in recruiting, and they could have a flood of talent come in there, the likes of which you never could have expected, even though you know how good a recruiter he is. And so in 2 years, they could have overturned the entire roster. They could be a team that is looked at from a roster standpoint as an even matchup with anybody in their conference. In fact, I'll go a step further. I think they will be that. Like, I think when Miami is playing Clemson or North Carolina or anyone else in 2024, 23, 24, I think they'll roster-wise be viewed as comparable or equal, maybe even better. Then it comes down to execution. Those are the unknowns. Like, those are the things that we did not see Mario Cristobal Oregon teams do. We never saw them achieve at that kind of level, a playoff level. But we also don't know if Mario Cristobal has maximized his ability as a coach. We don't know that we have seen his version of a program fully implemented. We don't know that. We think we knew it because Oregon was really good. We don't know that for sure. I'm going to go with a 3 with Miami. But that number could change very quickly because you tend to think it's going to be like a 1 or a 2. 3 is high, 30% chance over the next 3 years. It's because what they could do in the world of talent acquisition. LSU, I'm going to put at a 5. 5 or a 6. I would be in the 5 to 6 range. You know I believe in Brian Kelly. You know I believe that a lot of the foolishness off the field, a lot of the LOL type headlines, they will be a distant memory, quite frankly, by the time spring practice rolls around. But they will be a distant memory. He is a proven coach. There's no guesswork here. He'll get the staff put together. He'll learn the right language down there, figuratively and literally. They will get things right. They will have a rock-solid roster. They'll have a rock-solid culture. He will be a culture fit. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I'm thinking to myself, how are we going to shake things out in the SEC West? Because I can't be believing in Alabama, A&M, and LSU. There just aren't enough wins to go around. We're not talking about winning 9 games and going to the Citrus Bowl. We're talking about winning a title. And so with that in mind, it's kind of the same deal with Florida, just on the other side of the division. There's so much that has to happen in the sort of whack-a-mole path that you have just to get out of the SEC West that it keeps the number lower. If this were an ACC team, I'd have it at like a 7 or an 8, that they're going to play for a title within 3 years. That's how much I believe in Brian Kelly. What about Tennessee? Tennessee is a 2 for me, but Tennessee bears watching because there's this quiet confidence around Knoxville that they nailed their head coaching hire. There is also a firm belief amongst the high school coaches around the Southeast that they nailed their coaching hire. I think if that's true, you're going to see them really leverage the portal hard because this is going to be a destination for wayward offensive talent. By wayward, I don't mean a random 2-star out there no one else wants. I mean guys who have some juice to them that committed elsewhere on an initial signing day, but they're looking around and they're saying, that Josh Heupel offense looks like it fits me a whole lot more than wherever I am right now. This is a dream offense for a quarterback or a wide receiver to be playing in. Defensively, obviously, we just watched the Music City Bowl where they had about 2.5 quarters worth of gas in the tank. There is a ways to go. They didn't inherit any kind of perfect roster situation by any stretch. They made a lot out of a little this year. It's always a good sign in year one. So there's no doubt remaining in Knoxville. Everyone's convinced they nailed the hire, they got the right guy. I'm going to go with a 2. No one's going to look forward to playing them, at the very least. North Carolina is one that I think if you took a read of the room, you would have wild fluctuation. I think someone would say 0. There's no shot they're going to play for a title. I think someone else would say, I'm going to give it like a 4 or a 5. I just think maybe the media preview magazine culture was 1 year ahead of schedule with them. I'm going to be down at a 2 or a 3, 2.5 to 3, somewhere around there. I do believe that this is a prime candidate to flash a year after you expected them to. Because no one will expect that from North Carolina this year, but see, what they've done is, even though you may lose a quarterback, you have the cumulative effect of now having stacked another great recruiting class on top of what you already have there. You never know how that plays out. First off, you never know what could happen out of the transfer portal at the quarterback spot. Just bookmark that. But also, the overall cumulative level of play on that team keeps getting better and better. Now, you don't notice it because we don't talk about tight end or right guard a lot, but it is happening. And so in a state of flux elsewhere, in that conference, you never know. All of a sudden, you turn on that TV, and it's kind of like Notre Dame this year. Like, no one was talking about Notre Dame. They just kept winning games. And they got put out of it late, but they kept winning games. North Carolina could be that with a little more flash. I'm still going to go 2 or 3 on a scale of 1 to 10. This is not a program that's all of a sudden out of the spotlight just because they maybe disappointed you because you predicted them to do a lot this year. Last team is Penn State. This is not just because producer Jesse threw them in here. I do want to talk about Penn State. Penn State is kind of like North Carolina in a sense that they did not overachieve. In fact, most people would say they underachieved. I'm not so sure they underachieved. Well, okay, they underachieved last year. But think about what the disaster scenario was. The disaster was we find out in 2021 that 2020 was the real James Franklin. Well, at the very least, those fears were eased. But you see, if you're watching on YouTube, how they ended the season. Nothing to write home about. They've got the quarterback in the house now. Drew Aller is in the house. Now, he's going to be a true freshman. I don't know how long it is till he plays. Sean Clifford's coming back, also drawing AARP mail, but Sean Clifford's back. I also think this is a program that bears watching because it's a program that 1 year after some people expected things and they're out of the spotlight a little bit, that could be when they finally take the step. That's really quarterback-based for me because that's the position I've always focused on with Penn State. So Penn State, I'm going to go with a 2 with them right now. They've got a couple of powerhouses up there to deal with. But those are 8 programs. Now, there are some I didn't list. I didn't talk about Oklahoma. I didn't talk about Texas. This was not an exhaustive list. So if you've got other programs, put it in the comment section. But also, give me your number. Give me the program, and then scale of 1 to 10, what are the odds that they play for a title within the next 3 years?